Welcome to the Frequency Labyrinth. I am Adrienne McDonald, your host. This podcast is for you if you're done with surface level self-help and ready for something deeper and actually transformative. Around here, we work with ancient wisdom, human design, gene keys, and shamanic practices, not as knowledge to collect, but as tools to live by. This isn't about one size fits all. It's about learning to work with your energy, your design, and your life. This is about integration and embodiment. We go deep here with ancient wisdom, practical integration, so that you can develop ironclad self-trust. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time. Grab a cozy beverage and let's get into it. Today I am talking about the solar eclipse in Virgo that is occurring on Sunday the 21st in the afternoon. It's when it peaks, at least my time, Eastern time. So I'm going to go into a little bit of the cosmic mix. We're going to talk about where this lands in the human design world. And I'm going to give you things to watch for, and also ways to work with this energy by profile line. And so let's get into it. So in Hellenistic astrology, which was the system that was practiced in the Mediterranean world about 2,000 years ago, eclipses were seen as profound omens. It was one of the first things that, if not the first thing that was really, that we know that they tracked. They weren't just new or full moons, they were disruptions in the natural order of things, right? Moments when the sun or the moon were swallowed by shadow. And the sun in ancient symbolism represented like kingship, vitality, law and order, the steady source of light and life. And to see it suddenly darkened at midday, well, I can imagine that was quite disruptive to their being. And I know that was shocking. It was a sign that life itself could be suddenly changed. And historically, solar eclipses have often coincided with changes in leadership or sudden reversals of fortune or dramatic shifts in the collective. In modern times, we might think of this as like reorgs at work, or a CEO gets ousted and a new one is put in, or that sort of thing. And astrologers of that era paid close attention to, where's the eclipse visible, believing the regions under its shadows would feel the effects more strongly, which planets the eclipse was aligned with, because the planetary positions sort of flavored the outcome, and the zodiacal sign as a clue of what sphere of life that would be disrupted. So solar eclipses were rarely considered light events, like light in meaning. They were threshold moments. They were markers of endings and beginnings, literally written in the sky in their minds, reminding people that nothing was permanent. And what's important for us now that these ancient astrologers didn't see, they didn't see them as punishments, right? They saw them as points of time where something was going to shift or change. So also maybe moments that rewrote the story of what was happening, right? So the cosmic mix, we have Venus in Virgo squaring Uranus and Gemini right before the eclipse. And Venus governs what we love and what we connect with and we value. And in Virgo, Venus leans towards devotion through like the small things, the everyday consistent acts, the love language of just showing up. And Uranus in Gemini wants disruption. surprise, something that shakes us out of our routine. And together this can cause a little bit of a tension in relationships or values. Are you clinging to the familiar because it feels safe? Are you open to connection evolving in some ways that surprise you? Like this could be doing something entirely different for date night, for instance. And the square is asking for like a middle ground. Don't throw away devotion, but don't discount spontaneity either. There's room for both. It doesn't have to be either or, there's an and there. This can also mean maybe there's annoying disruptions that may come up this weekend and disrupting your routine. So you might just think about going with the flow a little bit more. Now, Mercury is the eclipse host because this is a Virgo eclipse and Mercury is running the show. And this means that everything happening here is filtered through communication and perception and meaning making. Mercury isn't about control, it's about curiosity and translation. And under this eclipse, clarity probably will not come from forcing the answers. And this has been a very mercurial week. So we've had a lot of fog, and then we'll have some sharp moments with all the things that Mercury has been going through this week. And we were also in the gate of friction, which the shadow of that is conflict. We're still actually, when this episode drops, in that gate. And the gift is diplomacy. So there's been a lot around communication this week. And I say all that to say that clarity comes from really staying curious and listening deeply and letting synchronicities guide you. And Mercury was also considered a psychopomp, which meant that it carries us across thresholds, but only if we're willing to hear what's being said, not what we want to control or script. Or I think that, especially in the coming weeks, and what the upcoming transits are going to be playing out, the ability to let go of the need to be right or the need to control will make things flow for you so much easier. Now, this eclipse is also happening with an opposition to Saturn, and Saturn is that mirror that's not going to soften. It tells it like it is. It's that reminder that if we want change to last, that we need to make it real and sustainable. Saturn is about boundaries, it's about constraints. And the opposition might feel like a wall, like the weight of responsibility, the limit you can't ignore. But Saturn's a very useful energy to work with because the question isn't meant to crush you. It's meant to anchor you. It's meant to say, okay, if this eclipse is a reset, how are you going to operate in integrity? How will you build it so it actually holds up 6 months from now? Because this eclipse is also near the South Node. And, all solar eclipses are new moons, but there's another important player here. With the eclipse occurring near the South Node in Virgo, we're not just initiating something new, a new cycle. We're clearing out something old. South Node eclipses, they typically expose habits and patterns and rituals that may have been perfectly useful at one point, but now weigh us down. And in Virgo, that can look very nitpicky. Like nitpicking yourself to death, overfunctioning in service, confusing perfection with devotion. The eclipse says you don't have to keep carrying that, and let it go, and what it wants to stay will root itself more deeply, and what needs to go, well, it's going to unravel whether you hold on to it or not. And I think that this whole month has been building to a culmination of something. Like that's the energy of this. Now this eclipse happens in gate 46, the gate of the determination of the self, which is really about embodiment. it's not about grinding your way to the right place. It's about trusting your body as the compass that gets you there. And in the Gene Keys world, the shadow is seriousness, the gift is delight, and the city is ecstasy. Now, when you talk about the shadow, that's when light was seriousness. Now, there's a place for being serious, but when life feels like a burden that you have to carry, every moment becomes heavy. Under eclipse energy, this just like it amplifies that. It may feel like perfectionism or hyper responsibility or feeling like joy is something you have to quote unquote earn. But the gift of this, the word delight, I always thought was an interesting one for the Gene Keys. I feel like it's more like presence and joy. This shift happens when you stop bracing against life and let yourself live it. It reminds me of someone I used to know. He was a really very driven individual, but he always felt like he had to have everything perfect and then he would start living. And it really, like, that's the shadow of this particular gate. He would put off trips, he would put off buying a house, he put off getting in relationships. I first have to finish school and then I have to, and I think life is about a balance. And I think he comes up to mind because he died when he was 39. So super, super young, and it was very sudden and unexpected. And I just thought it was really sad because he spent a great deal of his life waiting to live. And I think that the gift is the present and noticing like everything and appreciating everything in your day, like the meal you can taste, the conversation that you're actually listening to instead of being on your phone, the work that you do with like pride and care, not rushing it. It's not about ignoring responsibility because, again, there's a place for being serious, but it's about remembering that being alive is not a problem to solve and it's not something to wait for. And the city state of this, at the highest, this gate opens the possibility that life itself, like just being here, is sacred in every breath, every choice, every step. And it's not an escape, it's the recognition that the ordinary is already extraordinary when you inhabit it in full presence. So what does this mean for you under the eclipse? It means that it could mean that your body is the threshold, not your thoughts, your strategies, your body. Like if you want to know where to go next and how to move forward, what's ending and beginning, check in with your body, check your breath, check your gut response. And that's one of the great ways to work with this energy. And then when we bring the larger cosmic picture back into place, Venus squaring Uranus says, open up to new ways of connecting. Don't lock yourself into a cage of what's familiar. Mercury, who's hosting the eclipse, says, pay attention to the symbols and the synchronicities because they're breadcrumbs of living life more fully. And Saturn's opposition says, if you're going to embody this, you got to make it sustainable. Build practices and commitments and rhythms that actually support you, don't drain you. And, with this being in 46, I feel like it's here to reset the compass from like head to body, from control to presence. The call is stop carrying life as a weight and start letting it move through you as more of a lived experience. Now, I feel like September in general has been building towards something that you might not be able to totally name. At least that's how I've been feeling. And the eclipse feels like a punctuation mark on a month of really unseen, or I should say behind the scenes construction. It's that the universe has been weaving the threads under the surface. And now the solar eclipse in Virgo, the pattern is starting to reveal itself a little bit more. There's this air of business being brought to a close. It's like there's been unfinished business. Okay, we're done with that, right? And that could be a conversation, a project, an inner process. It could be shining a light on areas where closure or clarity is really maybe still a little bit in motion. But I can tell you, I've talked to several people over the last week especially, that they're like, I'm just done with X, whatever X is, it depending on where this is being activated in your life. And it's not really subtle, right? Mercury's been all over the sky this month, making transit after transit, sharpening the focus on communication, both internal communication, external, especially this week. It's been a very mercurial week. The way we speak to ourselves, the way we speak to others, the way the truth gets tangled or clarified in the exchange. And, and I said at the beginning of September, I said, who you are at the start of this month is not going to be who you are at the end. And we're still in it, people. This eclipse really makes that unmistakable. Because this is not really just a fresh chapter. It's like it really is a transformational, like it feels very transformational. So 3 things to watch for. Rushing to conclusions. Mercury's been very hyperactive. It's hosting the eclipse, so the mind wants to decide now just to quiet the noise. And with Saturn opposing, that hurry and rushing thing could get you into a little bit of a pickle. So just, feel into it and make sure that the decisions that you're making are not coming just from logical conclusions in your head. Like, feel into your body and use your strategy and authority to really anchor in. And, watch for long explanations that don't feel true. It's like, oh, you just need to pitch something without digesting it. Like, that's not a place to be with us. Number 2, I would say really watch how your body responds over the next week. Gate 46 really spotlights embodiment. Its shadow is treating life like I'm going through the motions and not feeling. So if you're deciding from clenched teeth or shallow breath, you're not in the right place in the right time. That's just maybe the noisy place to be operating from. So watch for a tight throat or pacing or doom scrolling or drafting the same text 3 times. And then number 3, rebellion dressed up as freedom or liberation. So Venus and Virgo squaring Uranus and Gemini can speak or spark rather. New means liberating, and sometimes that is yes, and sometimes it's avoidance in a really dressed up way. And Saturn's mirror, which will come very quickly after that, is, hey, will this still be true when this like this little spark wears off? So watch for sudden pivots that want to blow shit up, right? Picking fights to create an exit. Rebrands or breakups that you can't articulate beyond, I'm just done. But there's a I'm just done or I'm done from a very rooted place, and there's a I'm just done as a reactive place. So make sure that you're responding, not reacting. So ways to work with this eclipse energy by profile line. So, all right, my line 1's the investigator. This eclipse may surface the pressure to have it all figured out, right? Instead of chasing certainty, give yourself some grounding practice of embodiment, like a daily walk or a ritual tea. Like, having a cup of tea and be very present with that. Or see a simple breath cycle. Let the body's experience be the foundation, not more research. I know that's hard to hear. I know you want to dive in a little bit more with that research. That's not what we're looking for here. Not right now. Line 2, the Hermit. Your gift is the natural, right? But under eclipse energy, you may hide when the intensity rises. So watch for withdrawing as avoidance. Like share one piece of your embodied wisdom with someone really close, even if it's super simple. And that's where the renewal energy wants to land. Line 3. Hello, fellow line 3s. This eclipse may amplify the feeling that you've messed up or that you aren't done with past mistakes or you're ruminating on them. And you got to reframe that. Like your body knows through trial and error, right? Choose one experience this week that feels enlivening, not draining, and let yourself learn in real time. Like go and do something that may be creative and bring you more joy. I've got some things on my list to try with some jewelry projects that I've been working on that I'm going to try a different angle with. And then line 4, the opportunist. Community and connection are your levers. And with Mercury highlighted, the conversations with like people that have the capacity to hold a space with you are coming to mind during this eclipse season. And initiate one honest dialogue where you've been holding back. It's like, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you, and I'd like to go really real with you. And this eclipse energy supports really embodied truth-telling that strengthens your network. Now, I will give one caveat here. Because we've seen so much tension in the past several weeks, make sure that you're having that conversation with someone who, like I said, has the capacity to have that conversation. I feel like the fours that I've talked to of late are really seeing their circles shift quite a bit because of this. It's like I can't hold the way I look at things or my truth back anymore, and that's causing shifts in my circles. And you know what? That's cool, because if that happens, don't try to force it, because there's a lot of shifts in circles right now. Line 5s. Hello, line 5s, fellow line 5s. We know others project on you, especially now, and you may feel very heavy, very weighty from carrying things. But Saturn's opposition says don't overpromise. If it's not your circus and not your monkeys, don't get involved. Offer clarity when your body feels like you feel pulled to do it. Like your strategy and your authority is like, yep. Because you got to protect your vitality first. And line 6, my role models out there. This eclipse highlights something probably within. I feel like this is really stirring something, especially people after 50. Something in the long arc of your life story. And you may feel. I think you could feel two things. I feel like you could feel like you're not ready, and you feel pressure to arrive or embody the wisdom before you're ready. But I also feel like that ready is a decision, not necessarily a feeling for people that are after 40. So if you're, at 50 especially. So instead, stay in the process, feel into where you're at. Practice embodiment in the ordinary. Let those little peak ecstasy moments show up every now and then. And remember that your example is built over time. If not, it's not all at once. But when you're ready, make the decision to share the wisdom. right? And it could be another one of those things of just pick one thing and one person, somebody that has the capacity to hear that wisdom. And one of the deeper gifts of this eclipse, I feel like, is how we choose to meet it. Right now, the world is buzzing with reactivity. Everything feels urgent, immediate, overexposed, polarized. But Gate 46 reminds us that embodiment can really slow the spin. It lets us respond instead of react. And that pause, that breath, that body awareness, that's where clarity really lives. When you respond, you're rooted. You're in the right place. You're at the right time. When you react, you're just echoing bullshit noise. And, joy doesn't have to be complicated. We've trained it to make everything hard, especially anything that we deem, quote unquote, an award, like a reward, right? To earn it, to achieve it, to deserve it. And I feel like something that the eclipse is saying is, what if joy is actually just the easier path? What if the gift is simply noticing what feels alive, which brings a spark, and allowing yourself to have it? So as this eclipse resets the sky, ask yourself, where am I making life harder than it needs to be? And what's the simple doorway into joy that I've been walking past? Because I guarantee there's something you've been walking past that would bring you joy. Especially if you spend all your day posting crap on random social media rants, ranting about something, right? You gotta find the magic in the mundane. So that's it for today. And if this eclipse is stirring something for you, this eclipse season is stirring something in you. And if you've realized that you've been reacting instead of responding a lot, or making life harder than it needs to be, your human design energetic blueprint report can help with that. It's where it shows you how your body makes decisions, how opportunities naturally come to you, where you've been draining yourself by doing it somebody's way. So in this report, you can walk away with clarity that's practical, because I love a good practical thing. And you can stop forcing and start living your life in rhythm. So you can order that through the link in the show notes. I will be back next week, and in the interim, remember to find beauty every day and seek the magic in the mundane. Thanks for tuning in today. As always, take what resonates, leave the rest. Let whatever landed move through you in whatever way it needs to or wants to. And also, if you want to explore more, you'll find more information in the show notes. If this episode stirred something in you, please share it out or leave a quick review. It helps so much, and I really appreciate it. And remember, this work is about integration, and it always starts with self-trust.